In this video, I'll be covering how to enable reactive materials, how to trigger this blueprint and sequencer with a trigger event, as well as showing my process of how I adjust my material reactions live during simulation. I will also be showing my brand new audio to curve setup that will allow you to quickly convert any audio track into an animation curve, opening up a whole new world of possibilities. We'll also be going over layering animation by using parent objects to drive additional animation on top of any audio reactive mesh. Before we dive in, I want to give a quick shout out and special thanks to the team at EasyBiome. Today I'll be demonstrating my audio reactive setup using one of their forest trees and their powerful master material. The links to their YouTube channel as well as their Fab store are in the description. Here is how to very quickly set your blueprint up to be triggered via sequencer. So assuming we have our blueprint in the scene, all we need to do is go up here and do add level sequence. And I'm just going to leave everything default right now and just hit save just to get it open. So now we have our sequencer. First thing we need to do is drag in our BP audio reactive. Now from here we can create a event trigger. So you click on the little plus sign, we go up to event, and let's go to trigger. So now this trigger event is going to connect into the blueprint. Let me show inside real fast. So here is our triggers, and this is the sequence track trigger we're going to call from sequencer to start all of our audio reactive logic. Okay, so back into here and events, let's go ahead and create a keyframe. Now I like to put the keyframe after the first frame, that way it's not being triggered by accident when you're just sitting at frame 0. So go to frame 1, we're going to do a key right here, and now let's double click the key, and this opens up our director blueprint. We're going to connect this to the node I just showed you inside our blueprint. So we need to call sequencer track trigger. So in here, let's drag off and let's type SEQ, and right here, sequencer track trigger. And that is all you have to do. Hit compile and save. And now as long as on your blueprint you have use sequence trigger enabled, you can test it out by simulating and then just hitting play. Okay, so now to hook up the material with the reactive effects, I'm going to use this EasyBiome poplar tree as my example. So I'm going to bring it into my set. Let's make sure real time is on. You can see it comes with this default wind that's really nice, very realistic. Now let me go into their blueprints and bring one of their foliage managers into the scene. And this lets me control the wind and actually have a nice little visualizer of where the wind is going. I can simply just rotate this to change the wind direction. And the strength goes to a max of 1. And you can even see the little icon speeding up. It's a really fun and easy way to intuitively control the wind. Okay, so now to the materials. I'm going to go ahead and shut off the wind for now. Let's go into our tree master material. Okay, so for my example, I'm going to install the reactive emission function into the material for just the leaves for now. So let's go into our leaf static mesh. Go to the parent material. And if we just keep following the parent chain, we'll eventually work our way all the way back up to the master material. And as you can see, for this material, it's about 4 or 5 layers deep. I'm using this as my example because it shows that you can pretty simply install these functions into the master material for any instance, and it will propagate through every instance in your scene and give you reactive functions. So now that we are in the parent material, we're going to go ahead and either find the material output, or in this case, since they have material attributes turned on, we want to find the set material attributes node. Now most of the time, if you're working on just basic material setups, this will not be on, and you will just have your regular material with all your inputs, in which case we would just use our emissive color to install the function. But since attributes is turned on, that means that the attributes are coming from a set node. So we have a get, we have our set, and in our set we want to set a custom emission. And since this is a tree, it's not currently using any emission, so it works out perfectly for this case. So let's go ahead and pop open our content browser. We'll go to audio reactive and we have our material functions. Now, regardless of which parameter you want to control, you will always need the audio master. This brings in all the audio and lets you set all the audio tracks specific to that material instance. So we will bring an audio master. We will bring in emission for this test. And all we have to do is connect audio out to audio in and reactive audio out to emissive. And that is it. And since for this case, we're not going to be using any sort of texture to multiply into the emission, we're just going to use a flat color. We're not going to worry about this yet. I will show that in the next video. Let's go ahead and hit apply. And now this is going to update every instance in the scene. So let's go back to our leaves material. Let's close all these really fast. Okay, so let's go fresh into our leaf instance. And now you can see that we have this new category. We have audio reactive emissive. Now once we turn this on, you will get one extra category, global. This rollout will not show up if emission is not on. And this lets you choose the audio track it's reacting to. And it also gives you a master gain control. So that is how simple it is to add these to your materials. And regardless of which function you add, since we just added emissive, we get the one rollout, but you could add your base color, your roughness, your displacement, and you would get individual rollouts for all those separate parameters. So let's go ahead and turn down the light in our scene so we can see what's going on. For now, I'm just going to turn it off. And I'll leave it unlit for the moment, just so we can see the scene still. So now, if we go into our leaf material, let's go ahead and give it a few emissive parameters and just make sure these are all clicked on. I have a few defaults in here that they work pretty well, and I'll go over in just a moment, explain exactly what all these do. But it is pretty much a standard, contrast, offset, and threshold. So over a certain value, and the emission will trigger on. Anything under the 0.25 value will trigger no emission. Offset is a flat. It adds a value to the final audio float. So if the audio coming in is, let's say, at 0.4, and you add 0.2 to here, now it's going to be 0.6. So this is just a flat add if you just need to boost up the actual range. And then contrast. This will do what it says. It'll make it either a more snappy reaction the higher this goes, or if you get closer to 0, you get a more smooth reaction between the low color and the high color. And the low and the high, this is basically low intensity, high intensity. So this and this and this parameter will let you kind of control how this is blending from the low color to the high color. Then we have our pre and our post gain. If you don't have enough value to really tweak these effectively, you can increase your pre-gain. If you're working with a softer sample or audio track that just doesn't have enough intensity to give you a nice good reaction, you can just up the pre-gain. That just multiplies the incoming audio before any of this processing happens. And then on the flip side, after everything's set up, if you just need a little more power, you can up the post gain, which is a multiplier after all the effects chains. So now that we have that set up, let's go ahead and add our audio reactive blueprint to our scene. And let's throw in just a kick drum sample just to test this out. Kick. And since this sample has a few seconds of dead space at the beginning, I'm going to do a custom start time. To say start 5 seconds into the track, so it should already be playing. I don't have to wait around each time I'm testing. Okay, and let's just make sure our material is reacting to the correct audio stem. So let's set this to 0. Save it just in case. There we go. So let's give this a try. There we go. So when I simulate, you can hear the kick drum, and you can feel the trees flashing. Okay, perfect. So that works how we want it. Now I'm going to go into the trunk material. And since these all share the same master material, I already have my functions. So let's go ahead and turn this on. Keep all the other defaults the same. And let's just switch these colors just so we have some variety in our colors here. So do this, hit save. Now let's go back to our scene and simulate one more time. There we go. So now the leaves are doing their own thing and the trunk is doing its own thing. Now let's add a little more variety by doubling up the amount of audio tracks we have. And let's see if we have any kind of good melody. Actually, first, let's go to our kick and use a corresponding audio track. We use the strings. There we go. Let's put these in here. Now let's go back to our branch and change our audio stem to 1 to use this new melody I just plugged in, and hit simulate one more time. So the reaction seems a little bit strong, like we're not getting a whole lot of bounce on the trunk. So let's go back into here. Let's kick this post gain back down to, let's keep it at a 1. Contrast, we'll leave that. We will change the, let's change the threshold to like a 0.5. So anything under 0.5 shouldn't trigger. It's a little bit better. And again, right now we're not using any sort of textures, but if you want to actually blend the wood texture into the emission, that's what this emission mask is going to be. And I find this works the best using AO textures, so anything that's grayscale or black and white gives you good detail. You can even use just a single channel from a diffuse or albedo mask, but basically inside the logic, this texture is just multiplying over this color. So it's pretty simple, and you have your mask contrast and you have your mask invert, and both of these are demoed in the material demo level, where I have a brick wall where the bricks emit only, and then when this is inverted, just the grout between the bricks will emit. So that's kind of what this will do. And yeah, this is how you get a lot more realism out of your emission reaction. So here is my emissive material function, just so you can have a quick visual of what's going on. We have our on-off switch, the pregain multiply, it saturates and goes into a custom threshold contrast offset function. So this will control all the offsets, the thresholds, the contrast. You can see exactly what math it's doing. So it's doing the input minus the threshold times contrast plus the threshold plus the offset. And then down here we have our mask. So I currently use an AO texture since grayscale works great, especially with like edge detail. That way when you do invert, you can get like a brick to emit, or if you invert it, you get the grout between the bricks to emit. And I find that looks pretty cool. If you want to use your own texture on this though, just use it as you would. Bring in a diffuse or an albedo texture and just use a single channel. That way it's still just grayscale. So right now, most displacement maps will also work pretty well for this emission mask texture. And since displacements just use red channel, you can just come in here and plug in your red channel. Or if you have one of the ARD textures that has the ambient occlusion, the roughness, and the displacement, you'd have ambient occlusion, roughness, displacement, and honestly you could try any of those textures and plug it into these multiplies, and you get just varying results, and something might look better than a different mask. So for this, I like to just get creative and play with whatever textures come with the object and see which one works best when you plug it into this emission mask. But yeah, so far I found I get the best results with ambient occlusion. Here's a quick visualization of my audio reactive, the audio master function that goes inside of all your materials. So as you can see right now, it does have a hard-coded, a total of 9 audio tracks. This is the one part of my blueprint that is not at the moment dynamic as far as how you grow it. So if you do need more than 9 stems or audio tracks to be in your material reactions, there's just a couple places you need to add values. One would be the material parameter collection, which is in the audio reactive MPC folder. And we go into here, you can see I have my 9 elements. So this is audio track 0 through 8. And these are all read in through the material parameter collection nodes inside the function. So if you wanted to add to this, you could just start adding slots to this switch down here. You just start adding new pins. And then you would also add the corresponding slots in here just by doing add. And you could just keep adding as many as you want. And then the last place you need to make sure you make an adjustment would be inside here. So as you're adding your pins, you would duplicate these. And once you update this list, you'll have a new parameter in this list to pick from. And this will just keep growing and growing as you add parameters to this file. So that's really how you're going to currently grow if you need more than 9 tracks from materials. I'll have a more hopefully dynamic version in the future where this isn't a manual process like it is, because currently with lights and objects, you can just add as many as you want and it doesn't matter what the numbering is because they just dynamically grow. But in here, yes, for materials, you will need to manually add additional entries to your material parameter collection, as well as the audio reactive master function. So now knowing how these all look on the inside, you could ultimately bring in multiple of these audio masters, customize them, and use multiple audio track selections for one material. Let me get back to this. So what I would mean is if I go into here and let's say I just grab this, I'll grab all this for now. I'm just going to copy it right into my material. And so let's say I want to get clean with this and just delete all but one. And I guess I don't even need a switch. I can just pick the audio stem I want from here. Say I want 6. Disconnect this, delete this and that. And just throw it right into here. So this gives me stem 6. Now the master gain is going to control any and all you have. So you could always update these parameters as well to give you unique controls. So it could be like master gain control, stem 6, something like that. And I can make additional ones for other copies of this that I make. And then this would go directly into your emissive color. Actually, I'm sorry, it would not go right in emissive color. I guess it could, but it'd be very, very dim and have really no cool effects to it. So this will go into our audio in, and then this will go into our emissive in. So now in our function, we're still getting the audio we are expecting. Let's go back, go to the trees. There we go. But we have our own little unique, this is a dedicated audio track 6 is going to emissive no matter what else I change on the material. This won't change. So then I could even duplicate these. Make this, for instance, stem 3. And I could drive, let's see, let's bring in a different function. Content browser. Let's bring in world position offset. Yeah, we'll do that one for fun. Let's go audio in here. And then since we already do have WPO, we're just going to replace it for now, just to show you how this works. Okay, so now we have stem 3 going into world position offset and audio track 6 going into emission. So this is if you want to get really detailed with the materials and start controlling different parameters with different audio tracks to get some really granular control. So if I go ahead and go into one of my other functions, let's go into base color. I can show you what I mean with the textures. So in the base color one, all this is doing is taking the audio in, multiplying it by a number, and then multiplying that by the original base color texture. So if you didn't want to use the functions, you could pull these nodes out and put them directly, into your graph and use these base colors right here and then plug it into right here. So this is going to be the same with the emissive and not emissive, but the roughness and the displacement functions. So if we go inside roughness, you'll see it's the same type of deal. We have our audio in multiplying by strength, which is multiplying by the roughness texture. And we just have an on-off switch and it goes out. So yeah, if you found where the roughness was being handled, again, you could just pull the nodes out or just use the texture that the asset came with inside the function right here. And these textures right here will be exposed on your material instances. So let me see if I can pull one up real fast. So inside my maps demo materials, we're going to go ahead and pop open my emissive. Now this material is using my master audio reactive material, which has all the functions installed. So you see we have all 5 right here. That way on here I can show you all the examples. So we have our globals, metallic, roughness, emissive, displacement, base color. As you can see inside each of these, once we enable, we have our texture and our reaction strength. So this is where you would place the roughness texture that is, that is from this brick texture, for instance, or whatever textures came with the asset that you're manipulating. This is where you would plug in the roughness. And the same thing with displacement right here, as well as base color. So you have all your material slots, and the ones that do not come with would be metallic and WPO. Since metallic is pretty much just, is it metal or not? And the WPO just makes the mesh grow based on its own surface normal. And the last setting you'll need will be the audio reactive global. This will be the global controls for all the texture tiling, the master gain, and the audio track selection. So this is like your stem selection, where this is going to correspond with the audio you have put into the blueprint. And again, this tiling here will control the tiling of all of the parameters that have texture inputs. So roughness, displacement, and base color. So if you see when I change this texture tiling, you should be able to see the swatch change. There you go. So yes, this will control all texture driven parameters if they are enabled. Okay, so I'm just going to adjust this material live to show you how I like to work and how I would dial in a parameter while my track is playing. So I'm just going to do Alt S to start the simulation, and with the materials you can just live tweak all your parameters and it won't reset anything. Like it'll work during gameplay, which is nice. Okay, so let's fire this up. Just a little horror music loop with some strings. So you can see we have the red to purple flashing. Now let's try and get the brick detail out of this. So let's turn on our mask and actually have the ambient occlusion texture for this already connected. And you can already see we have a pretty decent look. Let's increase the contrast of our mask. So you can kind of see what that does. Now my favorite part with these kind of masks is to invert it and then play with the contrast. So as you can see, if you drop your contrast all the way down to 0, you get just a flat emission. So let's do escape, Alt S again, and we're right back into our simulation. So yeah, I'm liking this look. We get just some light bleeding through the cracks. You see as I take the mask down, we start getting a more broad effect. So as we raise this up, we just kind of clamp down to just the darkest values. And then of course this creates a more smooth reaction if you lower this actual emission contrast. And as this goes higher and higher, you get more snappy, faster reactions. So these are the settings I'm using. Most of them are default. Yeah, post gain, you'll get just a lot more added power to the final result. Pre-gain will probably blow everything out because it's multiplying the signal before it even hits all these values. So if you've already set it up the way you like, don't change the pre-gain unless you really have a reason to. Otherwise, it's just going to take all the values you've set and make them pretty much unusable because they're going to be so much information and just way too high values that things are going to clamp. And the last thing to show you is just that you can also live switch your audio tracks that are coming in. So let me simulate one more time. And I have my strings on stem 0 or track 0, and I have a kick drum on track 1. So if we go to 1, you'll see now we're getting hit by our kick drum. And back to 0 as we go back to our strings. So it's kind of fun because you can be changing the audio stream while you're playing, and it makes it a lot of fun to just kind of research and develop out your idea because you don't have to stop simulation each time you want to tweak a parameter. Let's now go over a few other options you can do inside of Sequencer to add a layer of sequencer animation on top of an object that is already getting a object reaction from the audio reactive blueprint. So we have our blueprint in our scene. Let's go ahead and add our mesh. Cool, so we have our sphere, and let's just make it scale to the beat. Make it scale on, let's just say 3 for now. Okay, so now let's go ahead and bring our, actually we're not going to bring our mesh into our sequencer timeline because its animation movement is going to be overridden by the blueprint, by all the audio reaction. So nothing you do down here is going to animate an object that is in my blueprint. But the way around this, you actually have two ways. We can either add an actor. Let's just throw this right at 0 so it matches the center of the sphere. And let's call this our parent sphere. So now I know this sphere is going to have this for a parent. So let's drag our sphere static mesh onto our new actor. And now we have our added layer of control where we can still move this around and it'll follow the parent sphere transforms while still respecting the transforms of the blueprint itself during the when everything's audio reactive. So let me see if I have the tracks hooked up. There we go. So you see we have the material reacting. Now we have our scale up on the strings. And let's go ahead and add our sequencer layer of animation. So let's drag our parent sphere actor into our timeline. And in here we'll do add a track, add a transform track. And for this I'm just going to do a simple location transform. So for cleanliness you can always delete transforms you don't intend on using. So if I just want to move him on Y, I'm just going to delete X and Z and keep it super clean. So if we set this back to 0, let's go ahead and set a keyframe. And then over here we'll just drag it down and set another keyframe. So now let's go ahead and simulate. And while this is playing, I should be able to now hit play. We have an animated object that's also being animated by the audio. So there you go. That is how you connect your animated meshes that are in the blueprint to additional sequencer animation. Now let's say I want to not use an actor, but instead let's try and use another mesh. So I'm going to unparent my sphere, I'm going to delete my actor, and I'm going to make a dummy mesh. So let's just add a shape, and we'll go with, let's just use another sphere. So let's move this to origin, and first of all let's make this hidden. That way it never shows up in our game, but we can still see it in our viewport. Let's go ahead and parent my existing sphere to this new little sphere. And now we have, cool, so we still have our original animation. Now let's go to our blueprint and let's add one more reactive mesh. This time, let's add the new parent sphere, sphere 2. Sorry, I should have named that, but yeah, sphere 2 is the new little white sphere I added, and it is going to be now also controlling this main sphere. So let's make this little sphere translate up on Z. I'll make it pretty big just so we really see what's going on. All right, so let's go ahead and hit preview. So now we have the sphere scaling using my blueprint, but it's also moving up on Z using its parent mesh, which is also in my blueprint. So now you have two separate meshes kind of driving the reaction of one mesh. And just to go over real fast how we can again now add that third layer on top, let's go ahead and throw in one more actor. Not a character, actor. There we go. Put him in origin. And let's take our sphere 2 and move it underneath our new actor. So now we have our child, the parent, and I guess the grandparent? Sure. And let's go ahead and throw this actor into our timeline. We'll give it a transform track. Again, I'm just going to clean this up and just keep what I want. Set a keyframe on 0. Move it over here, just slide it down. There we go. So let's test this out. So now we should have this sphere reacting on scale, this sphere making it jump up in the air, and now our actor moving it over on Y. So let's do our simulate and play. There we go. I've made this as sandboxy as possible. There's so many potential connections and setups you could do with this. I just wanted to give you a quick overview of exactly how things go together. That way you can hopefully have great ideas on how to incorporate them into your own projects. Alright, I'm going to show you a method that I stumbled across the other day that I'm really excited about, and I hope you are too. If you are an animator or prefer to work with animation curves, then this is for you. So we're going to start out with 4 of my template audio stems, my kick, bass, ARP, and my melody. And we are going to record all 4 of these to a sequencer all in one shot. So let me show you how to do that. First, we will go up to Window. We can just type in Take. We'll get our Take Recorder. Now this will also open up our sequencer for us, and that gives us this little panel over here. Now we want to record from our Audio Reactive blueprint. Let's go ahead and do Source, from Actor, and select our blueprint. And once we select the blueprint itself, we get all the available recording options. And we just want a few of these audio tracks, so we are going to uncheck the master. And since we are using tracks 0, 1, 2, and 3, I have exposed variables 0, 1, 2, and 3. So this is the hard-coded variables at the moment. It gives us a total of 7 potential audio stems that you can record and turn these basically into animation keys over in Sequencer. So let's see that in action. So now that we have our blueprint selected and we have the 4 tracks that we want to record, what I want to do is I want to set a delay on my audio, because right now when I hit play, it starts immediately, and currently I can't figure out a way to get the Take Recorder to automatically trigger simulation. So this is just kind of a workaround for the time being. But what I do is I go into my audio, and I have this custom start time right here, and I have the start delay on the master. So I'm going to use start delay. I'm going to give myself like a 5 or 6 second buffer before my blueprint fires. That way Take Recorder has time to initialize and do any countdown if you need it, and just get up and running before the audio comes. So okay, so now we have our delay. Let's go ahead and just hit simulate, and then we will hit play on, or record on the Take Recorder. But before I do, let me just make sure my frames per second are all correct, because up here I want to do 60 for this test. And here we go. Let's hit simulate and record. Got our countdown. Just going to let this play for just a moment to get some good curve data for us. Okay, let's call that good. And let's hit this browse to pop up. Takes me right to my level sequence that it just created. So it creates the cinematics takes folder for you. If you just use all the default settings, and it makes a date folder, and it just starts putting in these level sequences right here. So let's go ahead and open that up and see what it did. Let me close a few things to make some room. All right, so it gave us this level sequence. Let's go ahead and double click this recording. And to start with, first you want to click unlock. Now you can actually edit, delete, and move things around in here. And I just delete these audio components. Not sure why they record, but you don't need them. And just for future reference, if you don't want to have to worry about unlocking this every time, when you use your take recorder, there is a setting right down here. Actually, we just want to click in the open space to get the actual take recorder settings. There is a auto lock checkbox. If you just turn this off, all the takes that you do from then on, you can just immediately edit your keys. So I would recommend just unchecking that for all your recordings moving forward. Okay, so let's go back into our take that it just gave us. Here we are. And look what we have here. Let me open up my curve editor and you can see the awesomeness. We have our kick drum. I got my bass. Got the little ARP, little plucky thing. And I have those long held note, the melody. And they're all animation curves. But the only real issue I have at the moment is you're going to have to line up your start times, because at the moment I'm just hitting simulate and I have a custom delay, and then I hurry and hit record. That way I know there's at least a little bit of dead space before the animation starts. But you know, I guess if you're doing animation, that's probably not going to bother you, because you could just move things left and right and just time it as you need. But this is a great way to like really quickly get animation keys from any audio stem. And once you have these, you can just copy these into other level sequences, onto any kind of parameters you want, and control animation using the actual curves. So, and you can also use this in conjunction with the audio reactive stuff going on the static meshes of choice. So there really are just a plethora of options that you can do with this tool. I've had a lot of fun developing it. I hope you guys have a lot of fun playing with it, and I'd love to see any kinds of cool creations you guys come up with. So keep me posted. So now we're going to go into a quick motion design integration. So let me show you what I have figured out so far. We're going to go ahead and turn on a motion design. We're going to create some defaults. Just hit spawn. That way everything's just all set up for me and ready to go. And for my testing, I like to pop out a camera and go back into default viewport. That way I can still move around as I would, and I'm not locked to the motion graphics camera. Okay, and now we're going to expand this little area. Sometimes this gets lost over here. It's confused me a few times. So and let's go into actors, and we're just going to add a cloner. Let's add a cloner right into our scene. And let me shrink this back. There we go. So now I have my cloner. And if I go into the details, I want to just create a linked effector. But first, let's move it back to all zeros. And kill the rotation. Okay, now we're back at origin. I'm going to move my ground down, so this is just floating. Alright, so we have our cloner. And let's scroll down and create our effector. Now the effector is what is going to change the transforms of the geometry. I'm sure you know this if you're watching this for motion design purposes, but basically we want to get this effector to react to an audio track that is synced up to the blueprint that is playing. So what I have done so far that seems to work is, let me bring in my blueprint really fast. Let's say I add an audio track. I'm just going to use my kick drum test. And let's see. I'm going to start a few seconds into the track just so there's no dead space, and I can see the reaction immediately. And if I want to use the same kick drum to affect my effector, this is how you would set that up. So we select our effector. Let's go into our, where's our operator stack, animators. Let's add a sound wave animator. So now that we're in here, we want to change a couple things right off the bat. There is this global setting for where it gets its time, and we're going to go to sequencer. And I'm going to do the same on the sound wave effect that I just added. I'm not sure if it's necessary to do them on both, but I've just been doing that to make sure there's no question on what the settings are once it hits the screen. So I'm going to run at 60 frames a second. I have sequencer set for the source name. And now let's choose a property to be linked to this audio wave. So if we want it to move through on X, let's just add a link property, do location, and we're going to do X. So right now it's not doing anything because there's no sound wave installed right here. So let's go ahead and grab that same kick. Okay, and once we have that all set up, now we just need to create our track. So let's go ahead and hit create track. That'll give us the track right here that actually makes the effector start moving to the beat. And since this sample did have some dead space at the beginning, we're not seeing anything right away. So I'm going to control middle mouse wheel roll down to shrink this out. Now I want to expand my timeline. Let's just give it something big like 2500 frames. And I'm going to grab this and stretch it to the extent. Now let's see, there we go. So here's the dead space at the beginning of the sample. You can see when the sound wave starts to trigger on. Now the effector is moving back and forth to the kick drum. So if you are simulating the blueprint and you just want your effector to react to one of your audio tracks, you just put whatever sample you wanted that you're already using over here into your effector, and that will give you a synced up effect between the audio reactive blueprint and the effector setup. Now let's help ourselves visualize this a little bit better by actually adding the audio track we're using into our timeline. Let's go ahead and grab this kick and bring it into here. Now you'll get this message saying you want to use the audio clock source. We're going to hit yes. That just changes this icon right here to audio. And I want to lock this at 60. So I find this is necessary for working with the audio reactive stuff to use the audio clock. So now as we play, we should start actually hearing this sample in just a moment. There we go. So it also helps when you're animating. You can see exactly when your reactions are happening, even if you have this muted. Actually, that's not muted here. I'm going to right click, we're going to deactivate. That way we still see the waveform, but we don't have to hear it. Especially if you are playing your audio reactive blueprint, you'll want this muted anyway, since you're already going to be getting this audio track most likely playing through my blueprint. So let's go ahead and update this cloner or the effector setting so it actually does something. We're going to change the mode to noise, and let's change some of these strengths around. Oh, we can drop down. Let's do, I don't want them crashing into each other. Sure, there we go. So now as we drag back and forth, you can actually kind of see what it's doing. So that's interesting. Now that we've gone over driving the just basic motion of the effector with audio, let's go ahead and do a different property. So if you right click pretty much almost any of these properties in the effector details, you can do a animator right here. So let's do magnitude. We're going to right click, sound wave, and I just want to affect the magnitude. So there we go. So if we go over to our operator stack now, go to animators, we'll see this new sound wave here, and it is linked to our magnitude. So now the strength of our kick drum will affect the magnitude and not just the motion. So there you go. So if you have it set to loop and you don't have this set to sequencer yet, it'll just kind of play. So when you're testing and just doing your R&D, you don't have to actually set up in sequencer yet. That's more for once your effects are locked in and looking good. But it's much faster just to test like this. So I can see my little kick drum affecting my effector. And while it's playing, you can just see everything reacting live. So it's really easy just to come in here and link certain things, see what works, see what doesn't, and just tweak it to exactly the effect you're looking for. Okay, so after a quick scene crash, I've quickly rebuilt the level and I've added 2 audio tracks to my motion graphic timeline. So I have this kick drum, which is not currently driving any reaction, and I have these little string hits that are currently driving the effector. So on my effector, if I go to my operator stack, let's go to effector, operator stack. This is where I have this melody strings. So I'm not going to use this in my audio reactive blueprint because I just want it to be a motion graphics thing. So then in my blueprint itself, let's go ahead and add one quick audio track. And I'm going to use this kick. So now that I have my audio track into slot 0, I can go ahead and go over to my cloner and use the default clone. And I'm going to just adjust its material. Sorry, I had my details panels locked. So default clone, details. And I'm going to make this my emissive material that I have in my template scene. All right. So this is where it crashed last time. So let me save real fast. Okay. Let me go ahead and go into this emissive material and make sure my audio track is set to 0. That way it gets the one kick drum that I have. And let's do a simulate really fast after I make sure this is set to begin play. Okay. Okay, so now we have the materials reacting, but we don't have the motion graphic stuff playing yet. So then our last step is going to be to add the blueprint itself into the timeline. We're going to go ahead and trigger off everything right here. So let's add a event trigger. And in the event trigger, I'm going to go to frame. Let's zoom all the way in. I like to put a keyframe right on the first frame after 0. We're going to double click that key. As long as this doesn't crash. Sweet. Drag off the audio reactive pin and type in SEQ and pull in the sequence track trigger. Just compile and save that. Now let's go back to frame 0. And let's see if this all works. Alright, so let's simulate and play my timeline. There's my strings. Oh, and I hear 2 kick drums. So that's a problem. Let's go ahead and stop this. So see how I still have simulate going. So we hear my blueprint playing and it's going on top of the timeline stuff going down here. So in this case, you don't really need these to be audible if they're already playing through the blueprint. So you can just right click the audio and mute this guy. That way, when I simulate and play, I'll just have the single audio track.